Bam! Welcome everybody to the Branca Show. Let's listen to my buddy Braden Tatum.
I got to say something real quick. Benjamin Crump should be ashamed of himself. Al Sharpton should be ashamed of themselves. I'm right here in Mississippi. It's crazy that I had to fly down here to even get this information. They've been lying on these boys. I got evidence, and I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to lay it out for you. It is a shame that boy Nolan did not get the respect that he deserved. In my opinion, they turned his death into a racial thing, destroying the community. You name it, they did it. And we got evidence that it wasn't just 4 boys with him. We got evidence that they asked Nolan to get back on the boat, and he refused to because he grown. We got evidence that the boys reached out to the parents, that Benjamin Crump and them didn't refuse to reach out to these boys. And I've talked to them. I've seen the evidence with my own eyes. I've seen that there was more than just 4 people. There was 3 boats full of kids. I know that they left and they had nothing to do with this. And instead of them saying and standing up for these boys and saying, look, we don't know what happened. We want justice for Nolan. These boys didn't have no involvement. Instead, they want to make it about race. And it is a shame. And I'm so heated, man. I went out to Horn Island. We got all the video. We got the interviews. The boys wanted to talk to me because I'm the only one there to give them a voice, because everybody else is fake, fraudulent, looking out for themselves. And it's a shame, man. It's a shame. Nolan deserved better than what they did. They out here hoodwinking, trying to raise money and make stuff about race, and they have no evidence. They lied about the phone getting deleted. It's a shame, man. But y'all finna find out. And a lot of y'all gonna have to apologize for the stuff that you said. You're gonna have to take that video down and apologize because you are part of the lie.
I don't think anyone's going to apologize. What's he talking about? My buddy Brandon is talking about Nolan Wells. Nolan Wells, an African-American man, went out on July 4th with some friends who happened to be white on a boat, went out to Horn Island on a July 4th boating trip, social event, and he ended up dead. And of course, Benjamin Crump, Al Sharpton, the entire racial grievance industrial complex is out to make this a death caused by racial animus. They're suggesting that his 3 white friends who went out with him must have killed Nolan Wells because they hate black people. Why do they do this? Why does the racial industrial complex do this? Make up these stories, make up these lies, make up these fake narratives of racism, racial murder, because there's money in it. There's a lot of money in it. Benjamin Crump, an attorney, has become a multimillionaire many times over these cases. As far back as George Zimmerman, probably prior to that. Certainly in many cases that have happened since. Every time there's a case like this, especially if it involves police, which this one doesn't, but when it involves police, you go straight to federal court on a Section 1983 action, and the departments in the cities just settle. They just give Benjamin Crump millions of dollars. He never actually has to go to trial because he's perfected this art of turning up the heat, the racial heat on these politicians, and politicians are always happy to spend other people's money, our money, to make their political problems go away. The good news is that this particular case, this Nolan Wells case, is amongst the weakest I've ever seen. There's no air in this balloon. It has nowhere to go. Brandon Tatum, I just showed you a clip. He's doing the heavy lifting on all this, exposing these lies for what they are, and doing a great job at it. We're just going to share bits and pieces of this with you today. We're also going to cover the Karmelo Anthony appeal, because one of the reasons we're seeing Benjamin Crump transition over to this weak sauce Nolan Wells case is because Karmelo is all over. Everyone's looked at his appeal, his motion for a new trial. We've read it. It's nonsense. It's pathetic. There is no reality in which any of the arguments in that motion for a new trial wins Karmelo Anthony a new trial. Just doesn't happen. So we're going to step through all that. Not the entire document. It's ridiculously long. Most of it is nothing but fluff, filler. But the key arguments they make will expose why they're just not going to work. They're just not going to work. They're completely fabricated, made up legal nonsense. But Nolan Wells goes out July 4th with, I think it was 3 white friends on a boat to this place called Horn Island. And there's tons of boats that end up being there. It looks, on some of the video clips we've seen, it looks like might be a couple hundred people there. This is boat life. Boat life is happening. Of course, it's July 4th. And Nolan Wells ends up getting left behind. Somehow he ends up getting left behind. Now, his 3 white friends who he went there with, they left. They invited him to accompany them to leave. And he said no. Apparently he'd met a girl there. He said no, he wanted to stay. They said, okay, cool, man. You're an adult. You stay. And now Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton are trying to make it look like these 3 white friends of Nolan Wells somehow killed him. This is how they try to build these fake narratives. And thank goodness for people like Brandon Tatum taking this head on to expose what's happening here. Here's a clip of Benjamin Crump, who just seems, I don't know if the guy suffered strokes or what. You tell me if this guy strikes you as a legal genius. Let me pull him up.
If the roles were reversed and there were 3 young black 18-year-olds and there was a white 18-year-old who was with them and he ended up dead, we don't believe that those young black men would not have been interrogated to the full extent of the law. We believe that it would not have been a choice whether they were going to cooperate with law enforcement if their lawyers and them were going to cooperate. No, they would have been held until they gave answers. They would have been held until they explained the cell phone in their possession. They would have been held until their cell phones have been examined. And so whatever you would do, had the roles been reversed, we want you to do the same thing for Nolan Wells.
Zero evidence that these 3 white friends of Nolan Wells caused him any harm, whatever. Nolan Wells had simply left his phone on their boat. They returned it to the family. The family's trying to claim that they maliciously deleted photos or images. Presumably, they filmed themselves murdering Nolan Wells, and they had to delete that from Nolan Wells' phone. Does that make sense to anybody? Of course, it turns out it's a lie. There was nothing deleted from the phone. The police, of course, did investigate and talk to the young men and others. And when the young men left, Nolan Wells was alive amongst dozens, scores of other people. Here's some more Brandon Tatum coverage on this.
I want y'all to go and look at something real quick.
Try that again.
I want y'all to go and look at something real quick. Go back on that footage where that lady was showing the island, Horn Island. Now you can cut the music or the sound for her. Just play the B-roll of this. Pause it right there. I want to put this in perspective real quick because this is something that I thought was happening. I'd never been to Horn Island. I don't know what this place looked like. The way that the family and Benjamin Crump them are making it sound like Nolan went with a few friends to this little island, and that's the only people that were there. And then all of a sudden, they come back and he gone. But when you look at it, play it. When you look at what this looked like, there's a whole bunch of people out there. You're talking, this is like thousands of people out here. You got hundreds of boats all along the coastline. And so when they leave and Nolan is still there, he's not by himself. He's there with a whole bunch of people. And so to act like they went and did something to Nolan and then left him and tried to hide it all, that ain't passing the smell test no more. And I'm going to say this real quick because you will find out very soon, in my opinion, that the narrative that's out there is just not true. And there's a lot of people that know it's not true, but they won't stand up and say nothing about it.
They won't stand up and say nothing about it. Well, you are, Brandon, and I am as well. And Brandon actually went and found these young friends of Nolan Wells. He arranged interviews with them, went down there, and of course, you go to the source, you bypass Benjamin Crump, and you start learning stuff that's relevant to this false narrative being generated by the racial grievance industrial complex.
All right, I told you guys I was here doing an interview in Mississippi. I'm going to interview Warren, one of the boys that was associated with this, and we're going to just have a conversation, and we're going to talk it through, and I want to hear his side, and I want you guys to hear his side. And I'm telling you right now, because we've talked before, but I want to have his statements on the record, that you're going to be shocked at some of the things that you hear, and there's going to be a few of y'all that's going to have to give an apology. You just stay tuned.
They never apologize. They never, ever apologize. So let's go to a little bit of the interview he's referencing here. And this is one of the young men who was on the boat when he and Nolan Wells and a couple of others set out on a 3-hour cruise, so to speak. Let's see how I can do this. Here we go.
Wyatt went and put his smaller boat in the water, which is the Palm Beach. He's an 18-foot Palm Beach. And Wyatt, I drove the boat from Fort Bayou boat launch to my buddy's grandparents' house. And that's where we all planned to meet up that day. And
you say we all, who you talking about? You, Nolan, and how many people are going to meet you guys there?
We had roughly 20 to 30 people coming on 3 separate boats with us. And so we were all following each other out there as one big group. You know, it wasn't just me and Nolan and a couple other of my buddies. There was 20 or 30 people spread out where we all met at the dock before, and then we departed to go to Horn Island. It wasn't just a couple of us. I mean, there were so many people, we had to split up between 3 boats, and we all left and all got there at the same time.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's clear, because the statements that are out there made it appear that it was just you, Nolan, and probably 2 or 3 other guys, and y'all are the only ones that went out to this island.
And that's completely incorrect. I mean, Horn Island on the 4th of July is the most popular day to be on the water on, you know, throughout the entire Gulf Coast. I mean, everybody and their mom is on the water on 4th of July, you know. There's no telling. I mean, roughly probably 2 to 3, maybe even 4,000 people out there. There were boats lined up off the island. I mean, there was 3 rows of boats all the way until my vision ended, until I could see of people from, I mean, there was 1 row of boats, and then there was another row of boats, and then there was a 3rd row of boats.
It sounds like a nightmare to me. I just moved to Knoxville, not far from the Tennessee River. For a while there, it looked like we were going to have a boat slip, and I was thinking about buying a boat. And that sounds horrible to me. I think of a boat as, you know, you can be on the water and it's calm and it's beautiful. 3 rows of boats, hundreds of people. It sounds absolutely horrific. Not the kind of thing I would enjoy at all. But you know what you can enjoy? You can enjoy my friends over at Chapter Medicare Advisors. If you're on Medicare, or you see Medicare coming down the road, or you have a loved one who's in that position, you need to make the right choice for yourself or for your loved one on that Medicare plan. It's how you'll be getting your health care, and you'll be paying for it. They're not free. You know, there's over 24,000 Medicare plans. And when you go to a broker to get advice to actually enroll in Medicare, that broker has no fiduciary duty to do the right thing by you. He doesn't review all those plans. He picks out a handful to offer you. They're not necessarily well aligned with your healthcare needs, and they pay him the biggest commission. He's allowed to do that. And that big commission, of course, ultimately has to be paid for by your premiums. You're paying for that commission. So you're getting a healthcare plan, Medicare plan that's poorly aligned with your healthcare needs at too high a cost. Don't do that. talk to my friends at Chapter Medicare Advisors. They actually review all 24,000 plans. And in a very brief, less than 20-minute phone call, they can make sure that you're aware of the plans that are best aligned with your healthcare needs at the lowest cost for you. All you have to do is give them a call at 617-644-0093. Frankly, you're crazy if you don't call them. Historically, Chapter has saved their members over $1,000 a year on Medicare costs for a better plan for that member. There's only upside here, and Chapter doesn't charge you a penny for any of this at any time. Not just when you first enroll, but when it comes up for the renewal period, they'll check to make sure if there might be a better plan available now for you. And that'll be the one they recommend at the best cost for you. Doesn't cost you anything. There's only upside. You'd be crazy if you don't give them a call. 617-644-0093. Tell them I sent you. Tell them the Branca Show sent you. You won't get anything extra. You'll get the same excellent service they provide all their members, but they'll get a laugh out of it. They know who I am. We're friends. Chapter Medicare Advisors. Again, 617-644-0093. So, Nolan Wells went out July 4th. His body was found a couple days later, July 6th, I believe. And how did he die? How did he die? Found in the water. His body was found in the water July 6th. So what was this? What's this evidence of nefarious, racist violence that took this adult, he was 18 years old, adult black male's life? There's no evidence of any of that. The first medical examiner, the state's medical examiner, did an autopsy. There was no evidence of any kind of violence, anything that would look like a homicide. And then Benjamin Crump talked to parents of Nolan Wells. A little curious, by the way, how your 18-year-old son disappears for 2 days and you don't think to ask about where he's at. Why did it take 2 days to find him on Horrid Island? That's a good question. For someone to ask to go look for him. But the family was talked by Benjamin Crump into doing a private autopsy, paid for by none other, by the way, than Colin Kaepernick, the failed NFL football player, famous for taking the knee. He provided the funds for a private medical examination. And by the way, if you don't know how an autopsy is done, it's pretty grotesque. I mean, I've been in the room. They really take the body apart. They fillet that body. Everything, the head is opened up, the torso, everything is opened up. It's a really grotesque thing to do to someone if without a good reason. And there was no good reason to believe there was any racial animus here that caused the death of Nolan Wells. So let's see if we can. I didn't have a PDF of this, but maybe I can blow up. This is just an image. And we'll just kind of step through it. So it's RAM Consulting. It's off the top of the header here. Did the second private autopsy here, paid for, well, at the request of Benjamin Crump, paid for by Colin Kaepernick. I mean, just look what they do here. Bilateral facial dissection at the bottom of this page. I'm sure you can imagine what that looks like. Nolan Xavier Wells, 18 years, black male, date of death unknown. Second autopsy date, July 10th. So 4 days after he was found. Red discoloration in the soft tissue in the back of the head. Okay. Could that look like some nefarious conduct? Or did he just get drunk and fall and hit his head? Let's look at some more details here. What the key here is the dog that did not bark in the night. Let's see if I might have a better view here. I'm missing that top line. That's carried over from the second page. That's what it is. A bilateral facial dissection. What do they find? No fractures, no evidence of deep tissue in the face, deep tissue injury. Posterior head dissection. Focal area of red discoloration, no fractures. Posterior neck dissection. They did the Floyd on him. They looked for neck injury. No fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Pelvic dissection, no fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Subcutaneous and deep tissue dissection of the back, buttocks, arms, and legs. They just dissected this poor kid. No evidence of deep tissue injury. Cause of death, undetermined. Undetermined, pending investigation. That means this medical examiner would need facts from external investigations. Is there evidence he fell off a ladder? Was he hit by a car? Those kinds of facts that are not evident during the medical examination, but can provide the medical examiner with clues as to what might have caused death. Questions the medical examiner does not have answers to. What were the circumstances that led to Nolan Xavier Wells entering the water? Well, he's on an island. Maybe he's going for a swim. What was the body position when found? I think he was, who knows? Was there water in the airway? Is there any evidence of injuries to the anterior neck structures? Is there any evidence of intracranial hemorrhage? What was the composition of the stomach contents? What are the toxicology report findings? I wonder if those will be released. I haven't seen those yet. Presumably they did tox on a mysterious death of unknown cause. But this medical examiner, paid for by Crump, it's got nothing to contribute in terms of any kind of nefarious conduct. I'm not trying to disgust anybody, but I have another clip of Trump here, of Crump rather. Crump. Let's listen to this legal genius.
So, Dr. Roger Mitchell, board certified forensic pathologist, performed a preliminary report on the death of Nolan Xavier Wells. He conducted and presented this report on July 19th, 2026. Preliminary report, second autopsy, death of Nolan Xavier Wells. Cause of death, undetermined, pending investigation. And we'll explain that as we go through the report this morning. The manner of death, undetermined, pending investigation. Statement of examination. This forensic pathologist was retained to perform a second autopsy examination on the body of Nolan Xavier Wells. Name of decedent, Nolan Xavier Wells.
Oh my God, it's like watching someone who's suffered a traumatic brain injury. Unbelievable. And he's so wealthy. He's so wealthy off these racial grievance actions. It's unbelievable. Now even the NAACP is having to come out and concede. That's how little balloon there is in this air. A little air there is in this balloon. NAACP concedes the death of teen Nolan Wells may have been an accident as family prepares to share results of the independent autopsy. So there's Nolan Wells with his three buddies. They sure look like they're ready to murder him on a crowded island. Crowded island. We're gonna transition over to the Karmelo Anthony appeal in just a moment, but I'd like to close out with another clip from Brandon Tatum here. Let me pull him up. Close out on the Nolan Wells take, and then we'll move on to Karmelo Anthony.
Hey, why interject race before you get any information? To me, let me just say this, and I know people gonna clip this and get, and I don't care. I really feel this way. I'm getting sick of black people, right? I like the black people like me and others.
By the way, Brandon Tatum had me on a show to talk about the Karmelo Anthony event at the time.
That are conservative, that smart, but the rest of y'all, I'm sick of y'all. It's hard to even want to be around black people, to be honest, because you try to give them a pass. You try to be nice. You try to say, not every black person's like this. Yeah, no, people on TMZ ain't like this. Oh man, this person ain't like this. This person, man, they son done got killed and they pushing racism. This is the thing that bothers me. Like, we don't know what happened. They don't know what happened. They're doing an investigation. There was black kids there with him too. Why y'all act like y'all not even talking about the black kids, just the white ones? And then you got these people on here. Al Sharpton been pimping for I don't know how long. Y'all, that's why when black people make money, they move away from black people. They move to white neighborhoods.
It's so
Let's
true.
keep it real. Y'all don't want to hear me say it, but I'm saying it. Where
It's
does
funny because
LeBron
it's
live?
true.
Where do they live where white people live? That coach just said, yeah, there's black kids. It's an all-white school. Everybody getting along. That's what happens at these white schools. White folks ain't worried about y'all like that. They doing their own thing. Every single white environment that I've been involved in, and ain't no drama. Nobody shooting, nobody stabbing, nobody hating on you, nobody doing none of that. White people doing their own thing. You put a bunch of black people together and they acting a fool. And I'm not saying it's every black person, but it seems like it's more prevalent than it is not. And I'm tired of it. Let's play this Al Sharpton crap that this fool doing. This is why people don't like black people. Even the girl that's talking on here. Like, when are y'all gonna get a better mind? This is such low energy, low vibration stuff. This is why black people are down here in society. Because our
Where's
minds
the
are
lie?
down here.
Where's the lie?
Everybody else's minds is just up here, thinking of greater things, thinking about how they're gonna take advantage of the American dream, and they're not pushing racism every day. They're trying to unite with people. That they're building companies and businesses, and their kids are going to school and getting educated. Even the Africans that come over here, they believe in education and doing what's right and getting married and all this high vibration stuff. And y'all still down here, the white man. Roll the clip.
Okay, I'm going to end it there. Let me take a look at the super chats and such. MJ Laval, member for 8 months. Thanks for being a member of the family for 8 months. Can Crump be sanctioned for wildly mischaracterizing the facts? Not really. He's never in court. He's just talking to the media. So no, if he was doing this kind of nonsense in court, maybe he could be sanctioned. The judge may not like it. You have a duty of candor to the court, but you're talking to media. You can just make stuff up. I remember him doing the the autopsy for Michael Brown. Hands up, don't shoot in St. Louis, Missouri. Saying he was shot in the back. It's all nonsense. Amazing disgrace, $10. The most logical explanation is usually the correct one, unless you can inject race into the equation. Isn't it getting absurd that Whitey is the first conclusion they jump to? Because that's where the money is. The money and the political capital. That's why. Ortelios, member for 11 months. Hail, Branca. I hope you resolve the issue with the construction of the new Branca HQ. So, should I share that story? Who wants to hear about my house? Or should I save it for the members only show? You know what? I'll do a quick poll. Let me do a quick poll. See if people want to hear about my home travails. Let's see. Do you want to hear about Andrew's home building drama? You don't have to. It's okay with me if you don't want to. Remember, you have to. I'm doing this on StreamYard, so it's not like YouTube where you click. You have to put a number in the chat. Okay. So yes is 1 in the chat and no is 2 in the chat. And that poll is starting. Do you want to hear about Andrew's home building drama? It's been a little exciting. It's all working out well. Don't worry about it. There's no problem. But I didn't know there was no problem until yesterday. Until yesterday, I thought there was a big problem. A giant problem. Let's see. I want to move that. I want to move that up there so I can do more super chats. Citizen E22, $5. Thanks for showing this. Of course, man. It's my pleasure. That's what I'm here for. I serve all of you. Tyrannosaurus Rick, $5. Has anyone ever noticed how the ones who are demanding the most respect are the ones who are giving the least respect? It's funny how that works, right? It's funny. I have black friends. I never have these issues with them. They're just normal people. They're just normal human beings. They work hard. They take care of their families. There's no drama there. It's crazy. All right. So the next thing I want to hit with all of you is the Karmelo Anthony appeal. Let me get that spooled up. But before I jump into that, I can see it's overwhelmingly in favor of hearing about my my home building travail. So I'll do a quick summary of that for everybody. There's the appeal, but 93%, 53 votes for. All right, so this is the deal, and I want to be very careful. I'm not trying to imply or say malice on anyone's part here. I think everyone was making the decisions they thought were best and reasonable under the circumstances. I'm not sure their decisions were best and reasonable for me under the circumstances, which is why I had an issue. So, as you all know, I've moved from Colorado to Tennessee, to Knoxville. And we've been looking for homes here in Knoxville for some months, long distance from Colorado. We would fly in for a couple days and look at a bunch of houses. But, you know, that's a very difficult thing to do because you can't get all the houses you want. And then when the inspections are done, you're not there. And anyway, we were really kind of struggling with it. And then our broker introduced us to a home that was under construction. It was being built by friends of the broker, wealthy friends. And they were building two houses side by side. One was more advanced in construction than the other. It had sheetrock in and stuff. The house we were interested in was still studs. But because the same builder was building both, we looked at the house next door to be representative of kind of the fit and finish that our house would get. And it was a very expensive home, not a very large home, but very expensive. And we were given building plans, and the building plans were gorgeous. And the fit and finish in the house next door, the molding on the columns was beautiful. It was gorgeous. And so we made an offer to buy the house that was still, at that point, still studs. And the commitments made in the purchase and sale by the seller were that the house would be built consistent with the building plans, which we loved. It had barreled ceilings. It had all kinds of stuff. It had broad expanses of windows with transom windows above it. It was beautiful. And so they said, we're gonna build the house. We're building for you in accordance with the building plans. And the fit and finish will be at least as good as the more advanced house next door, which we had looked at. And the moldings were gorgeous. And we were like, if that's what our house is going to look like, we're in. Well, we started the construction. We made our offer. It was accepted. So now we're contractually obligated to buy this very, very expensive house. Not a very big house, but it was supposed to be fancy. That was the trade-off. And we flew back into Knoxville a few weeks later, and now the sheetrock is up and the molding's going on, and the tubs are, the Whirlpool tub is there, and the light fixtures are starting to go, that kind of stuff. And we look around, and everything is crap. Everything is the cheapest stuff you've ever seen. The molding was like the cheapest hotel or apartment you've ever stayed in. The light fixtures, they weren't even like builder grade. They were like Temu grade. They were the chintziest things you've ever seen. The Whirlpool tub was not a Whirlpool tub. An expanse of 4 windows turned into an expanse of 3 windows. The little transom windows up top that looked so beautiful weren't there. There were walls with windows in the building plan, and the windows did not exist. It was just a blank wall, just sheetrock. And so we started asking questions like, wait a minute, this is not the house that's in the plan. And these fits and finishes are not the same, as not at the same level, nothing close. I mean, objectively inferior to what we saw in the house next door. And we said, listen, this is not what we made an offer on. You're building a house, but you're not building the house that you proposed. So we want out. And they said no. They said, we're going to make you buy this shitty house at the very high price that you'd offered. The high price we'd offered for a house that was supposed to be gorgeous, not cheap, not tinsy. And so that was, we were in that dispute. And listen, I do use of force law. I don't do real property law. And so I'm not sure how much of a position of weakness I'm in here in terms of this purchase and sale. I read it, and on the legal merits, it seems clear to me. I mean, I'm not saying they did this, but it looks very much like a bait and switch, right? Like, hey, here's this gorgeous house. Make us an offer. We made an offer. And then what they're going to deliver is something much less gorgeous. I'm talking like multiple six figures difference in value in my mind. So we asked to get out. They said no. Now I'm looking at maybe years of litigation, right? Maybe they're going to demand specific performance. They're going to demand that I actually buy the house, not just like pay some kind of monetary damages. And so that would prevent me from buying another house for my family to live in. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare for a couple of weeks. We're living in this kind of, Airbnb for now. And we were supposed to be moving into this place like August 3rd, like 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, And they also told us, by the way, that, it's not going to be ready in time for closing. So we're going to have to, we're going to delay you at least another month. Well, that actually was not allowed in the purchase and sale. They could extend for 30 days for acts of God, but not beyond that. And I'm like, all right, this doesn't look good. And then a couple days ago, we went to look at the house again, and we just spent hours there filming everything. And because there were so many variances from what they were supposed to deliver, and variances from the building plan. And we were afraid we might end up in litigation. And then you need evidence. So essentially, we spent a couple hours there collecting evidence in preparation for litigation. And our brokers were there. The builder, the general contractor was there. The people actually, financing the building of the house, they weren't present. But I guess the general contractor called them up and said, "Hey, Andrew's been here for a couple hours filming everything." And they made me leave. They kicked me out. They kicked me out of the house I'm supposed to be buying. And I said, all right, well, the purchase and sale says, you have to, this was a Saturday. They said, well, we were just doing you a courtesy. You're only allowed to be here during business hours. I said, great. I'll be here on Monday. You have to let me in on Monday. And I was just going to go back every day and just hang out at the construction site and just film everything. And I guess they realized it was best just to let me go. So yesterday we got a release from the purchase and sale. So we're out of that nightmare, a mutual release. And yesterday morning we got that release. Yesterday afternoon we started house shopping again, and we found a beautiful little house we've made an offer on. And that offer was accepted this morning. So I think we're in good shape. I think we should be good. It's a lovely little house. My family will be very happy to live there. So that's been the travails. But as they say, all's well that ends well. All's well that ends well. Here we got a little, we got a rumble rant here. Let me grab this. Oh, and I'll look at the law of self-defense. We're also streaming on law of self-defense because we're covering the Karmelo Anthony case. And let's see. This is what I want. And that's a self-defense matter. So appropriate for the law of self-defense community. My second job, if you like the use of force analysis stuff, check out lawofselfdefense.com. You can pick up a completely free copy of my book. Well, completely free. We do ask you to pay the shipping and handling. So I guess it's not completely free, but the book itself is free. And learn how to be hard to convict if you ever have to defend yourself, your family, or your property. Get that at lawofselfdefense.com. Gito 46310 says, Andrew, just remind the sellers that you're trained in use of force law and you know how to make it look fully defensive. I'm not sure the people who are, actually financing the construction of the home, I don't think they knew I was a lawyer until Saturday. I don't think they knew that. And their lawyer had been sending me very, very mean letters. Well, one letter. When we asked to get out of the contract initially, we told them, listen, you're just not building the house that's in the plan. You're building a house, but it's not the house that we made an offer on. And he was like, no, we're going to make you buy it. There's no world in which we're going to let you out of this contract. We're going to sue you for damages and blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. Anyway, that's all done. That's That's all finished. That interesting chapter in my life is now complete. So Ortelios had asked about the construction of the new Branca home. The home we're buying is already built, so we're not going through that again. It's an existing home in final form. Oh my God, we looked at the house next door again on Saturday. We walked over. My wife Emily walked over, and she said the finishing was horrible. Like they have a round window, one of those round windows. It doesn't open up. It's just aesthetic. And it's not round. It's just like the circle is just like wavy. It looks like a small town attorney had done that construction. So, but anyway, it's all done. It's all done. So it was a tense. I will say it was a tense couple days. It was a tense couple days. All right, let's get to Karmelo Anthony. Karmelo Anthony, of course, killed Austin Metcalf. Murdered him under a tent at a high school track meet, stabbed him in the chest with a knife after saying, "Touch me and see what happens." Had the knife open, out of sight, but open in his bag. And the moment Austin Metcalf laid a finger on him, Karmelo Anthony whipped out that knife, stabbed him in the chest, cut his heart, killed him, died in his brother's arms. And we had the trial that I covered, and Karmelo Anthony was convicted and then sentenced by jury to 35 years in prison. And now he wishes to appeal that. So he's gotten rid of his trial counsel. Howard was his lead counsel. Toby Shook was second chair. And, people, they did not televise the trial, so I couldn't actually watch their performance in a way that would be useful to me. And I heard people be critical of Howard, the lawyer, because, well, his client got convicted and maybe he didn't do a very good job. But, we lawyers are stuck. We're stuck with what you give us, my friends. You give us bad facts, we're going to have a very difficult case. And Karmelo Anthony was not giving his lawyer many good facts. The conviction was not a surprise to me. The conviction was perfectly appropriate on the facts of the case. I don't think 35 years was long enough for a sentence, but there we go. And now Karmelo Anthony has a new legal team, an appellate legal team, which, by the way, is normal. So normally, if you get whatever happens at trial, you get convicted, you go into appeal, you normally have different lawyers for your appeal, because appellate work is a different kind of work than trial work. It's much more technical. It's kind of dry. There's no real theater component involved. It's kind of the nerdy part of the trial / appellate workflow. And there's different rules that apply and so forth. And by the way, one of the claims you often want to make is ineffective assistance of counsel at trial, which can get you a new trial, get you conviction overturned. And it's hard to argue ineffective assistance of trial if you kept the lawyer for your appeal, right? Apparently you think he does an okay job. Gito463 says Karmelo should be more concerned about his appeal to Bubba, his inmate neighbor. Well, he's going to be there a long time, 35 years. It might pay to make friends with somebody. That might be prudent. So now Karmelo Sincere Anthony is appealing, and the appeal is ridiculous. This thing is 193 pages long, and it's just childish. Now there's basically 4 grounds for appeal here. And we're not going to read this whole document. Most of this document is filler anyway. You wouldn't want to read it. But the 4 grounds are that first, the conviction should be reversed and a new trial granted because the court did not allow public access to the trial, violating the right to a public trial. But of course, the trial was public. The trial was public. This is just so silly. People from the public were allowed in, not many people, because the courtroom is not a big courtroom. Most courtrooms around the country are pretty small, and this one, I would say, was medium size. Apparently, it can hold about 70 people. That's not bad for most courtrooms I've been in. There's they're complaining about things like the gag order before the trial, the fact that the trial was not televised, and those things are true. And I was critical of the trial not being televised. I would have liked it to be televised so I could observe what was going on and provide a genuinely informed opinion. But a trial not being televised is not grounds for a reversal. that you couldn't get as many, you couldn't get an infinite number of the public in. I think something like a quarter of this motion, this appeal, is affidavits from what appear to me by their names, if you know what I mean. If you know, you know. It appears to me by their names to be young African American women who were not able to get into the courtroom to observe the trial. That particular individuals couldn't get in to a courtroom that can hold 70 people when half those seats are allocated right from the jump to families of the defendant and the victim. That's no grounds to overturn anything. So the trial wasn't sufficiently public, they complain. Second, and this is a big one. They're putting well, this is the one being covered in the media. It seems like everybody knows that the initial argument about the trial not being public enough is silly because it was public. Members of the public were allowed in. Just there's only so many could fit. The second one is they're claiming that the state had a deal with the defense, promising that they would not bring up Karmelo Anthony's propensity for violence and bad conduct, bad life choices. The state promised not to bring up the bad stuff about Karmelo Anthony. They were just going to focus on what happened in the tent. And in exchange, the defense was not going to bring up what they claimed was bad stuff they could say about Austin Metcalf. Now, the stuff they cite about Austin Metcalf is pretty weak sauce. Pretty weak sauce. But the prosecution and the defense has said, listen, we won't bring up, bad character evidence of Karmelo Anthony, and you'll agree not to bring up whatever it is you think you can bring up about Austin Metcalf, and that way we can just focus on what happened under the tent. Well, then something happened. Then the defense decided, you know what, we're going to have to call, after the debacle of a narrative of self-defense, the couple of witnesses they introduced after the state had rested, they realized their client's definitely going to get convicted if he doesn't take the witness stand. And when your client takes the witness stand, it opens the door to everything. There's lots of stuff. There's lots of character evidence that cannot be introduced to the jury if your client never takes the stand. Prior convictions, propensity evidence, character evidence, lots of things. You can ask the judge to exclude, and the judge will exclude, right up to the point where you put your client on the witness stand. The moment your client's on the witness stand, he's a witness like any other witness, and his character can be impeached. His credibility can be attacked. And that's typically done by bringing up, circumstantial evidence about other things that they've done outside the scope of the specific event that's charged. Everybody knows that when Karmelo Anthony takes the stand, he's kicking the door open to every bad thing that's ever been recorded about him. But the defense tried to argue, oh, no, wait a minute. We want this agreement about you won't talk about his bad stuff and we won't talk about Austin Metcalf's bad stuff. We want that agreement to apply not just if he's not testifying, which is what they'd agreed to, but even if he testifies. This is an insane position to claim without any explicit evidence that the state had agreed. Even if your client takes the stand, we're not going to bring up his character evidence. There's no way the state would ever agree to that. Nobody would agree to that. That's crazy, but they're trying to pretend that that was the deal that they had, that even if they put Karmelo Anthony on the witness stand, the state would not be able to introduce anything bad about him to impeach his credibility. That's the argument the media is mostly talking about because it feels like it has the most weight. It's nonsense. They don't have any evidence at all that the state had agreed to withhold character evidence about Karmelo Anthony, even if Karmelo Anthony took the witness stand. The third ground of appeal for Karmelo Anthony is that the trial judge gave an improper jury instruction, improperly instructed the jury. And this could be a big one. I mean, one of the best ways to get a conviction overturned is if there's an error in the jury instructions. After all, the jury instructions are the instructions to the jury, explaining how they're supposed to apply the law to the facts of the case as they believe the facts to have been proven or disproven, and arrive at a verdict. It's the algorithm. And if the algorithm's broken, if the instructions are broken, the jury might have gotten to an incorrect verdict. It should be reversed, and you should have a new trial with a properly instructed jury. I'm big on this. If there's a defect in the jury instructions, you can't have any confidence in the merits of the verdict, no matter who it is. Could be Charles Manson. If he got bad jury instructions, he should get a new trial with proper jury instructions. But here's the problem. There were no improper jury instructions. The jury instructions were perfect. Because what they're complaining about is that one of the jury instructions, the self-defense jury instruction, included a provision on provocation. Provocation is if you provoke the confrontation with the intent of then having an excuse to use force against the other person, you can lose self-defense as a legal defense. Now, you need a certain minimal amount of evidence to qualify to argue self-defense in the first place. That's called the defendant's burden of production or self-defense. Again, get the book, folks. I urge you. Lawofselfdefense.com. Get the book. The book is free. We talk about the 5 elements. There's up to 5 elements of the claim of self-defense. And if any of those elements, they're all required, unless for some reason one or more is legally waived. But all the ones that are required are required. And all the ones that are required, there has to be some evidence of them. If there's zero evidence, there's nothing for the jury to consider. The jury is the finder of fact. All they do is evaluate the evidence, testimony, the evidence that's presented in court. So if one of the required elements of self-defense has zero evidence, there's no way a rational jury could decide it was self-defense. There's literally zero evidence on one of the elements. Now, you don't need a lot of evidence for the jury to consider self-defense. Basically, it's a more than zero standard. So if there's 1% evidence on a required element, well, there's something for the jury to consider, and the jury should get that self-defense jury instruction. The only time they shouldn't get the self-defense jury instruction is if there's zero evidence on a required element. Here, of course, there was. I mean, the evidence in support of self-defense was weak sauce, but there was more than zero. And so they got the self-defense jury instruction. But they got the self-defense and jury instruction with the provocation provision, saying, but even if he otherwise qualifies for self-defense, which he wouldn't, but even if he otherwise qualified for self-defense, he nevertheless loses self-defense if he provoked the confrontation with intent to cause harm to Austin Metcalf. How much evidence do you need of provocation with intent in order to get that provocation jury instruction included? It's the same standard. It's more than zero. 1% is enough. And of course, there's more than 1%, but all you need is 1%. But when witnesses testified that Karmelo Anthony told Austin Metcalf, touch me and see what happens, that's like, take your swing, take the first punch, I dare you. So you'll have an excuse to stab someone in the heart. That's evidence of provocation. Now, does a jury have to conclude that qualifies as provocation with intent? No. The jury could have decided other. In fact, we don't know what the jury decided. We know the jury decided it wasn't self-defense or it would have been an acquittal, but we don't know why. It could have been not self-defense because Karmelo Anthony went disproportional. He used deadly defensive force when he wasn't facing a deadly force threat. There's a number of reasons a jury could have decided against self-defense just on the individual elements of self-defense not being satisfied to the satisfaction of the jury. One of them could have been provocation. They stripped away self-defense because of provocation with intent, but they don't explain to us how they arrive at their verdicts. That's not part of the verdict form. So we don't even know that provocation with intent played any role here, but it could have. There was evidence to support a provocation with intent argument. Well, the defense here is trying to say the provocation provision should never have been given to the jury. The effect of the provocation provision is to strip away the only legal defense Karmelo Anthony had, self-defense. That's true. But that doesn't mean the provocation provision was an improper jury instruction. There was evidence to support it. And as long as there's evidence to support it, the instruction is appropriate. So that's not going to be very compelling. So just to kind of recap, the one ground of appeal is a trial wasn't public enough. It wasn't public enough. 2 is that this the supposed deal between the defense and the state that the state would not bring up character evidence, even if Karmelo Anthony testified, the defense is claiming. And by extension, they're saying, well, we couldn't have him testify then because the character evidence would have come in. Imagine how bad the character evidence is that they could not put their client on the witness stand, even though they knew they had to put him on the witness stand to have any hope of an acquittal, to avoid a murder conviction. They still couldn't do it. That's how bad the character evidence against Karmelo Anthony is. And third, this issue of the provocation instruction and self-defense. Those 3. And then the 4th ground of appeal is not a new thing. It's just like all 3 of those things, even if none of them individually is enough to reverse this conviction, cumulatively, they should be seen as enough, which is a pretty weak argument. It's not really 4 grounds of appeal. It's 3 weak ones and then kind of a little bit of filler at the end. So let me go to the individual sections. We're not really going to read this, but because I've already summarized it pretty well, I believe. Let me see. All right, first ground for a new trial. The trial court violated defendant's Sixth Amendment right to a public trial by materially restricting public access to trial proceedings. But they did, but it was only because, it's not an arena. It's just a little county courtroom. It holds 70 people. 30 of those seats were immediately designated for a family. There was only 9 seats available for media, and those were assigned to media. They complain here about, what about an overflow room? There was no overflow room. The courthouse doesn't have there's no extra rooms in the courthouse for an overflow room. That wasn't a possibility. During jury selection, the judge actually had TVs put up in the common area, like the hallways of the courtroom. You were not able to watch voir dire, but they played audio over the TVs. So people in the corridor could hear what was happening in jury selection. But there's no way the courts courts don't normally do that. It's obstructing the hallways. It's troublesome. And the court's not obligated to take extraordinary efforts to let in as many of the public as want to come into the courtroom. So this is all silly. And the court clerk explains all this in an affidavit. In any case, how would this have negatively impacted the process for the defendant? There were members of the public there. There was media there every day. They were reporting on this trial. How would it have changed the verdict if there were 18 members of the media instead of 9, or 27 members, or 270 members? Again, I would have liked the trial to be televised, but that doesn't change the verdict. That doesn't change the verdict. Then they list a bunch of cases where other trials where there were. If there were no TVs, then there was overflow rooms. But that doesn't mean this Judge Roach, has to do that here. They even had some prominent self-defense cases. They picked the table up, which was pretty funny. Derek Chauvin. The entire trial was broadcast and live streamed. Amber Geiger, remember her? That's the woman who walked into the wrong apartment. A female cop walked into the wrong apartment, shot the guy living in his own apartment because she mistook him for an intruder in her apartment. Uvalde response in Texas, the school shooting response, that was televised, gavel-to-gavel live stream. And then some unnamed New York criminal trial. Cameras were banned, but an overflow room was provided. Bankman-Fried, that was the fraudster. Overflow rooms with live video were provided. Maxwell, that was the Epstein woman. Live audio feed, but no video. That was in the federal court. Federal courts generally don't allow cameras. And this case, Karmelo Anthony in Collin County, Texas. Overflow feed during voir dire. Again, that was just TVs in the lobby. Then withdrawn for testimony. No audio, no video, no overflow room for the trial proper. Judge is allowed to do that. It's not any kind of, it's no error at all, but it's particularly not any kind of error that would have changed the verdict. That should result in a new trial. The next ground of appeal. And by the way, so this is I'm now on page 48. So I'm going to go back just to see how many pages they spent on this, because it's a lot. it's for a very weak argument. They spent a lot of time talking about it. Where does it start here? It starts on 13. So that's what, 35 pages of argument on this little county courtroom not being big enough to suit them. Not all the public could get in. 35 pages. Then they get to the second ground of appeal, which is the supposed deal with the prosecutor that the prosecutor wouldn't bring in character evidence. The state's repudiation of the parties' unrecorded agreement. So this was never written down anywhere. Limiting character evidence after the defense relied on the agreement, and then they were unable to they say they were unable to put their client on the stand. They also say that they only had 10 minutes to make the call. That last day of trial, when they decided they were going to put their client on, they say, well, that's when the state told us, well, you're kicking open the door. You're kicking open the door to all this character evidence, and they only had 10 minutes to decide, to make the decision. The trial team, not these guys. This is a new appellate team of lawyers, but the trial team of lawyers only had 10 minutes to decide. The trial Mason, the lead counsel for Karmelo Anthony, he includes an affidavit with this saying, yeah, I only had 10 minutes to make a decision. It's a lie. It's a lie. We know it's a lie because we have the transcripts of what was talked about outside the hearing of the jury. And outside the hearing of reporters. So it was not previously reported on, but they're at the bench talking to the judge, and it's all being captured on audio. And they had far longer than 10 minutes to decide. And in fact, they knew the whole time. They were trying to ambush the state with being allowed to put their client on the stand without having his character evidence come in. So this was, they spent 48 to 55. So they only spent 8 pages. They spent 35 pages on the nonsense appeal issue of the trial. The courtroom was not big enough to let in everyone wanted to let in. And then what's supposed to be their really substantive claim, that the prosecutor screwed us by repudiating this deal on character evidence, 8 pages. That tells you something about how important they think it is and how much argument they have to support that position. It's not much. And then the third ground is that jury instruction ground. The court's unsupported provocation instruction improperly limited the defendant's right to self-defense. I'll read a little bit of this because it's more technical and it goes with the law of self-defense community stuff. To whom we're streaming. We're live streaming today. A provoking the difficulty instruction is one of the few charges that can take a defense away from the jury altogether. When properly given, it tells the jury that a defendant who provoked the encounter forfeits the right of self-defense he would otherwise enjoy. For that reason, the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is like the Texas Supreme Court for criminal matters. They have 2 different Supreme Courts in Texas, one for civil, one for criminal. The Court of Criminal Appeals is like their Supreme Court for criminal stuff, has held that the provoking instruction may be submitted only when the evidence supports each of its 3 elements of the provocation instruction, and that giving it without that support is error. And here they're saying, well, you didn't have the support. What are the elements? That the defendant did some act or used some words that provoked the attack. That's 1. 2, that the act or words were reasonably calculated to provoke the attack. And 3, that the act was done or the words were used for the purpose and with the intent that the defendant would have a pretext for inflicting harm. Here, Karmelo Anthony stabbing Austin Metcalf. And they're saying, well, we have to concede 1 and 2 because we had so many witnesses testify about touch me and see what happens. That satisfies the 1 or 2. But they're saying, well, there's no proof of intent. There was no proof of intent presented at trial. So that would be the third one. They're saying the third one, the intent element of provocation, is missing. So the provocation instruction should not have been given. It's nonsense. The intent is always inferred from other evidence. We don't have brain reading machines. We can't literally see someone's intent. We infer intent from their actions. People are presumed to intend the reasonably foreseeable consequences of their actions. You tell someone, touch me and see what happens. He lays a finger on you and you whip out a knife and stab him in the heart. You intended all that. That was intentional. Karmelo Anthony never said, I slipped. I slipped and my arms went akimbo and I just accidentally stabbed them in the heart. No one's claiming that. This was clearly intentional. The provocation instruction was clearly appropriate. And then the fourth ground for appeal, a new trial should be granted in the interest of justice, because even if you don't buy any of those arguments on their own merits, you should buy them in their collective. Collectively, the weight of all 3 of these weak-ass arguments should result in a reversal of conviction and a new trial. Hey, Gito463 over on the Rumble rant says he bought the hardcover of the book. We also have it in hardcover. It's a beautiful hardcover, by the way. Looks great on the bookshelf. Looks great on the coffee table. The Law of Self-Defense hardcover. Makes a great gift. Makes a great gift for those who you would like to have be hard to convict. He says, I got the hardcover copy of your book and I highly recommend it. That's very kind of you, man. I really appreciate that. Let me take a look over at the Law of Self-Defense site. See what kind of comments we have there. Oh, no. Okay. Let's see. Looking through. Brian says, everyone I know who moves to Tennessee has problems with their homes. And when I say everyone, I mean 2 people. The other person I know also moved to Knoxville. So that's about my housing woes. Is that it? That's all the comments? We haven't had a comment there since in a half an hour. Huh. I'm going to do a test. See if something's broken. Test chat. Oh, okay, it worked for me. All right. Well, if you're still there, Law of Self-Defense community, I've got your chat. I've got your chat up. Yeah. So we do have a few more weeks before we move into the new house. So I'll still be in the Airbnb. This is still the studio we'll be broadcasting from. This is the temporary HQ for the Branca show and for Law of Self-Defense for a few more weeks. But it looks like we have a home lined up. And let's see, a super chat. DJ Moore, member for 3 months. It sounds like you dodged a house-sized bullet. It felt that way. It felt that way. I almost dropped to my knees. Now, they told us, they called me on Saturday after I was there filming for 2 hours and they kicked me out. They called me. The broker did. Called me that afternoon and said, listen, we're going to let you go. But I don't believe it until I have the signed release, you know. And of course, part of it was we get our good faith money back. And that got transferred into our bank account. We got the money back. And I still didn't have the signed release. In fact, I never actually got a copy of the signed release from the brokers or the seller. I had to call the title company and say, listen, I presume you wouldn't have released the money unless you had a signed release. They said, yeah. I said, can you send me a copy of that, please? And they did. And that was just yesterday morning when I knew for sure that I was I was free and clear of that nightmare of a home. Sounds like you dodged a house-sized bullet. Good job. Looking forward to the Courtney Clenny case with Rakita and Ghazni. Courtney Clenny, the OnlyFans girl. We will be covering her trial. She is accused of murdering her boyfriend and stabbed him in the heart. Another stab in the heart case. And she's going to trial in a month or so. Finally, it's been years. And I think I will be covering that, live streaming that. I'm pretty sure. Normally with these high profile, and she's claiming self-defense. So it's a self-defense trial. And normally with these high profile self-defense trials, I do stream every minute of them. I have to figure out how I'm going to meet that obligation to my law of self-defense community and the public with my Branca show obligation to cover, do political and legal commentary on like court decisions and so forth. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. We'll have to see. It would have been if I'd been forced to buy that house, it would have been pretty bad. It would have been pretty bad. All right, guys, we spent the last hour and 8 minutes talking about Nolan Wells died on Horn Island and Karmelo Anthony's feckless and pathetic appeal. That's the reason Nolan Wells is in the news. It's because Carmelo's appeal is so weak, it's not going to go anywhere. There's no air in that balloon. So Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton have to transition over to the next purported racial murder. We're just about to wrap this show up, but we're going to transition over to our members only show, Champions of White Culture. The House, a House committee has been questioning the Athea. What the heck is her name? Athea. She has a weird name. Athea Hartig, the director of the Smithsonian and the Museum of American History at the Smithsonian, and it's full of woke crap. I've covered that briefly a week or so ago, but now they had congressional hearings over the last couple of days, and some of my favorite people, my favorite congressmen, have been holding Athea Hartig's feet to the fire for her woke nonsense on the Smithsonian. Brandon Gill, of course, featured in the thumbnail. The chairman of this committee is none other than Tim Burchett, Congressman Tim Burchett, who is my new congressman now that I've moved to Knoxville. He's actually my congressman, one of my favorites. One of my favorites. And we have a few others. And this is important. These hearings, the exposing of the feckless wokeness is important because you can't defeat what you can't identify, what you won't name, and you can't defend what you won't name. And these guys are naming white culture as something that should be championed and defended and calling out those who would degrade it, like Athea Hartig. So we're going to transition over to that in just a moment. In fact, let me start that stream up right now. I'll start the background music running. Maybe, let's see. It seems to be working. And oh no, I forgot to upload. I forgot to upload the background music. I'm going to talk a little more with amongst all of us while that's happening. That'll be great fun. That House Oversight Committee, Tim Burchett, Brandon Gill, a couple other folks. The chick with the crazy hair, what's her name? The Republican congresswoman who forced her way into Virginia Military Academy. She looks very interesting in some of these video clips. She looks like the kind of thing, not me, I'm a very happily married man, but the kind of thing that a single man of certain years, if he was on a business trip and at a nice hotel bar and he saw her, he would think up a fake name and go buy her a drink. And Nancy Mace, that's who it is. Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace has that crazy, not that hard to pick up in a hotel bar look about her at this at this congressional hearing. I'm not saying that's how she actually is, but she's got that 43-year-old divorcee had a couple or six Sauvignon Blancs, Chardonnays under the belt already, and she's amenable to persuasion. Let me put it that way. She has that look of being amenable to persuasion. Let me see. Law of self-defense. We're here listening intently. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure nothing broke. We're planning a trip to DC. We're planning to go to that museum. Won't waste our time now. Yeah, I wouldn't go until they fix it. You'll just pull your hair out, as we'll see in this bonus show. Okay, the background music is up. I'm going to start. Well, it's got to play. There we go. Right now on YouTube and locals for members, it's only a few cents a day to be a member. Folks, get double the number of Ranka Show content. Thanks to all of you on Law of Self-Defense for joining us for the Karmelo Anthony stuff as well. And you guys might consider becoming a member of the Branca Show. We have a lot of fun over there. I'll see you all over at the Champions of White Culture show in just a couple of moments. Until we meet up again, I do remain Attorney Andrew Branca for the Branca Show. Stay safe.